Chico and the Man will not be presented this evening, and the Rockford Files will be seen 1 hour later than normal, so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Hi, I'm Alex Ross.
The two pieces are sort of a type. They're both kind of recreations of artwork that existed in the 90s. In fact, this piece here for the Avengers is in most ways a recreation or a tribute to George Perez's poster version from the mid-90s, where he did a shot that featured in it a figure of Captain America that was very similar to what I've done here, positioning of the Vision or positioning of Hawkeye, and I believe a few other elements are very similar to that piece, and it's consciously so. I was building off that inspiration, but I kind of refitted my design to fill out bigger shots of the figures so that I was making a wider composition and getting in a lot of the same characters, but still not quite as many as what George himself did, because George's thing was always to try and get in the maximum amount of content into pieces that he did.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Sanchez here. Now, we're talking about a trope in comics that has been there for 80 years, 80 plus years, the superhero in comics. Technically, though, superheroes actually even have outlived the comic book format. When you think of things like the Phantom and other costume heroes that came, the Shadow, even Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze, came before the Man of Steel. So, that's kind of plays into what we're going to discuss today with my esteemed guests. We've got Jeff Thorne, Paul Kupperberg, Michael Jan Friedman. Welcome all. Men that have not only made great comics, but also have done great superhero stories outside of comics, and they've got a new collection of these stories. But good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here.
First timer, Jeff. No, really glad that we're talking.
No hazing. No hazing. No hazing.
Well, don't promise anything either. We'll see how you feel in 60 minutes. But no, this is great. Mike, once again, you and the Crazy Eight guys have gotten together and are doing another fine collection. We remember now here a little blurry, everybody. I apologize. Phenomenon's Volume 1.
This is actually volume. Here's one.
Oh, is this one?
This is one.
That's one.
I'm sorry, and this is 2.
Right.
And we're talking about 3 today.
And 3.
So what's the subtitle of 3, Mike?
The Wind and Fire.
Excellent.
The Wind and Fire. So actually, I'll let you in on a little secret here. The all the subtitles are actually from Tale of Two Cities.
Wow.
Okay, isn't that heartwarming?
Were they chapters of Dickens' book, or
No, they were just phrases that I picked out of the narrative that I thought would kind of fit what we were doing in that volume.
It's one of my favorite Victorian superhero stories.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Times it was the worst of times, especially in
it was Metropolis. It was Gotham.
Exactly. Oh, that'd be good. Why is it Jeff? That's your next pitch for DC, man. Tale of Two Cities. Let's go.
Oh my God!
Don't put them opposite of each other on the same body of water. That's my.
Oh my God! That is a whole TED Talk by itself.
Excuse me.
What were you doing?
You have the author of the Atlas of the DC Universe sitting here, who put them there. So
get out of here, Mike. Really?
I'm not. I'm staying.
I blame
you. Paul wrote that. In fact, I think I have it here somewhere.
All right, what the
hell? I blame
hell,
you, Paul. I blame you. You're not off the hook. That was some craziness.
Come on, man. My God, we were always so proud that Metropolis might be Chicago. Even though what's his face? Nolan used Chicago in the first 2 Dark Knight movies,
right?
But
so one of them, like in Delaware.
Yeah,
something?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't Brusiak do a thing where the DC Earth was bigger because it had more stuff in it, plus the actual stuff? So it had like all these fake countries and fake cities. So like, but it also had New York. It also had, so there's New York, Metropolis, Chicago, and Gotham,
Sure.
all
Right.
in the same United States.
Yes, as though the continent was not large enough to contain it without an idiotic comic book trope to explain it. Yes.
Could that explain, rest his soul, Neil Adams' expanding world theory? I kind of see a little through line there.
It's more that it was a movie that Neil wanted to make and not an actual theory.
For real.
And he
That's
went
fantastic.
and named him. He went and named his characters after cities, just in case you weren't confused enough.
That's amazing. Oh my! I got to reread now that Hidden Earth Batman thing that he Odyssey. I want to say it was Batman Odyssey. I think you wrote.
Oh, don't do that. No.
Maybe,
But
I may
anyway.
be out of my depth here. Usually, I'm the learned comic book guy, but I think I may be well out of my depth.
Excuse me, young man. Why don't you just sit back and let your elders speak?
Yeah. While they
you read the history, we were.
That's true. That's true. That's
We'll
a fact.
We'll be napping any minute now, so you'll have plenty of time.
Stop it. Stop it.
Outstanding.
That's ridiculous.
All right.
We
Well,
wrote the songs.
Anyway. Yeah, as I said, let's get back to phenomenons because I want to hear about all of your characters for these various stories. So, Mike, why don't you start with what? And again, as editor, but yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, well, Phenomenons. It's about a world where the financial crisis of the 80s, we never quite recovered from it. And it gave rise to a whole bunch of what we call captains of industry. And they're basically like mini Lex Luthors. And we thought that those were the enemy. But it turns out that there's a Capa de Tutti Capos, behind them all. And this is a woman named Georgina Pinkerton, which she sounds very nice, but she's actually the force behind all these bad guys, even though many of them don't know it. So she's what we came to have to contend with in Volume 2. And Volume 3 takes it up a notch. So we're going to be dealing with her, and there are some twists and turns along the way. But the idea from a writer's standpoint behind Phenomenons was to do things that you can't do anywhere else, right? First of all, it's prose, right? So it's a different muscle, and it's a different way of exploiting the superhero trope. We're on our own, right? There's no artist to support us. We're on our own, and we're able to do a lot of things that we can't do in the constraints of a 24-page comic. But I would say everybody that we're working with has really taken that and gone to town with it. We have one woman, Marie V. Bear, whose character is Lipstick Lily, and Lipstick Lily is she's not in this particular. She's in Volume 2, but she can't tell the players without a scorecard. But yeah, she's got the red shirt with the bandolier. Those are all lipsticks, right? And so she's sort of like Green Arrow, but with lipsticks, and all these trick lipsticks. And then we've got Mary Than, who's a member of Crazy 8. She's got a character, a sarcastic fringehead. Listen, I don't even know who she is. She can manipulate salt, and she's one of the most original characters that I've seen in a long time. But a couple of our mainstays in the books are the characters that Jeff and Paul have introduced, and I'm going to guess, because I've encouraged this, I'm going to guess that these are characters that they want to do more than any other character that they've done.
I'll go with that. Sure.
So guys, you wanna tell the folks about your characters?
Yeah,
Jeff's buffering, so why don't you tell us, Paul, about your guy?
Go, Paul. Go, Paul.
Well,
He's back.
I've got my guy. He's a super speedster. I've always had an affinity for them. I was as a kid a fan of the Flash, and when I discovered as a child that the multiverse was in Flash of Two Worlds, in Flash 123, the multiverse was discovered on my birthday, because that's the date on the newspaper.
Wow.
It was June 14th, 1961. And so I was, the multiverse, again, was born on my birthday. So I have a very strong affinity for the Flash and that whole situation. So when it came time to create a new character, I went with a speedster, and I came up with Torque, who is a departure from your usual secret identities. He's kind of a loner. He's a guy who doesn't want to be involved in this stuff. He's grew up. There he is. He's the guy with the goggles.
Yeah, on the right. Yeah, for people watching. Yes.
Yeah. He grew up in an abusive situation in foster care, and now uses super speed to try to run away from that. Although not very successfully, as it turns out. But so it's been a lot of fun. I discovered superheroes in Prose in Batman and the Four Villains of Doom, and Batman and the three whatever it was. But there were two novels written by Winston. See, I'm blanking on his name because, of course, I'm on camera. Anyway, these two novels written in support of the Batman TV show and movie in 1966, and I bought them, and it was like I'd been reading comic books, but it was like, this was a whole new dimension. Even though it was the silly Batman TV show, you were going places with the characters that you can't do in a comic book. It's just, you don't have enough thought balloons. You don't have enough space to do that stuff. So this is great. This is a lot of fun. And, I've written this stuff before. I did a couple of Spider-Man novels around 1980, which was another eye opener. It's like, oh, this guy, this stuff can be really interesting this way, So
a lot of subtext and stuff. No, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Jeff, how about your character?
I'm kind of like these guys, jack of all trades in a lot of different sort of media. But I love superhero comics in specific, and I really like the Challengers of the Unknown. I'm a gigantic Jack Kirby head. I love the Fantastic Four, and I love that kind of accidental superpower thing. And now what do we do with it? I also, sadly enough, I really, really, really like thieves. So I sort of combined those two, and I came up with this group called the Midnight Ramblers, who are I'm a little bit obsessed with Steely Dan as well. I don't know. Sorry about that. But,
I love Steely Dan.
Yeah, the Midnight Ramblers are basically the thief version of the Challengers of the Unknown, and they're asked to basically do a job on a place, and it's a job that two of the four of them are like, why are we doing this? And the guy sort of picks the jobs. It's like, for lots of money, let's go do it. And so they do. And it's one of those super science sort of facilities, and all hell breaks loose. And three of the four Ramblers are apparently destroyed with the facility, leaving one behind, Rascal, who was sort of their tech guy. And he has an ability he can see the alternative timelines and shift himself or up to them or bring things from them to him, but not in a sort of giant cosmic way, because the further out from right now you get, the more chaotic and crazy time becomes. So he's like, he will always know the combination to every safe. You can probably not trap him. He can get out of any locked box provided there are enough alternative ways out, right? Things like that. More outlandish the necessary outcome. He's almost like the opposite of the Scarlet Witch, right? Like if it's plausible and possible, he can do it. If it's nonsense, it's not going to work for him.
Okay.
So
okay.
I threw in my outlaw character, and similar to Torque, he's not a. The Ramblers are they're do or die for one another. Well, I get the hint that there might be a polyamorous union between one or two or more of them. They are definitely violent, dangerous, borderline, or actual sociopaths in a lot of ways. And Rascal is not trying to be a superhero. He's not trying to be anything. As soon as he realizes he's got this power set, he's basically off the grid. He's so paranoid, he's got like 90 different identities and places to run in every major city that the other Ramblers don't even know about, right? So he's that guy. And then in the Phenomenon's universe, he's very much off the grid until one of these sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. / Hydra / AIM sort of groups sort of says, hey, you didn't die. We've been following you. They think he can do something that he can't do, and no one knows what he can do. So he keeps that close to the vest. And then the larger story of the universe sort of unfolds around it. And so in volume 3, Rascal and his group in some way or another will connect to the rest of the shenanigans, because they're basically just thieves.
Okay.
So
okay. Is this Mike, do you have this mapped out in terms of a big picture story for this universe?
Oh, sure.
yeah.
No, well,
you remember how 52 was mapped out? Remember how well that was planned? This is not even as good.
You remember Lost?
Yes, I've
you know how they mapped that out? We kind of took it
remember
from
the
them.
DC challenge?
Wow,
Oh
yes.
my God.
That's
so
fantastic.
the thing is, we're going to do our best to make it look like we mapped it out. But and there was structure. There was some structure. I did, get some input and kind of lay out some structure there. But honestly, these guys and really all the writers that are involved with the project all do better when they have the fewest restrictions.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I wanted to give them as much leeway as I could, without going off in a million directions and having no structure at all. Because it's tricky, on one hand, we want to move the world along. Every volume has a different basis, and we want to do that, but we don't want to make it a chapter by chapter kind of thing if we can help it.
Right.
So you kind of have, all of us have this this sense of story. And whether it's out front or in the background, it's always there. So there are connections that can be made, and we're making them. I mean, Jeff in the first 2 volumes was kind of off in his own corner, telling his own story, and then we realized, wait a second. This, hey Brad, we realized, wait a second, this really could kick off volume 3. I see where this is going, right?
Yeah.
So we're making connections as we go, and the fun part of it, the real delight of it is when you find that connection and you go, wait a second, it's almost as if we planned it that way.
Right.
That's great. I was wondering if, after you get the stories or at some point in the collaboration process, you're like, wait a minute, that's our lead story because X, Y, and Z happens in subsequent stories. So that's great. That's wonderful. And that's really interesting, especially Mike, as the editor, to kind of, you're almost, kind of going over and finding the secret code that maybe is there intentionally or unintentionally.
Interesting is one word for it.
Hey, in the words of Super Chicken, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it.
Right.
Holy crap! What is happening to my brain today?
Sorry, man. Hey, Jeff, I'm assuming I'm older than you, and no disrespect to Mike and Paul.
God bless you.
I'm the Jan Brady of this group at the very best, so I get it. Man. No. I'm sorry. That is the greatest.
No, I'm just like, there are things you throw into conversation like it's nothing that I don't believe I've heard anyone say out loud in decades. Wow.
Did you hopefully, guys, because again, I do think this is an advantage of the younger generations, that there are more of us overtly nerdy, and especially, the comic stores, but conventions, everything else. But I'll admit, I only had a couple friends like that we could throw back and forth on cartoon lines or whatever. But I hope you guys had the same experience growing up.
Oh yeah, no, I had a hardcore group of fan friends back in Brooklyn in the early '70s. It was that's when Levitz and I started the fanzines that have led to our jobs. That got me here today. Can I go back in time and change things, please? No, I kid because I love. I love to kid. What can I tell you?
You're a kidder.
I'm a kidder.
This is good.
No, but yes, that was so vital to me. Actually finding that, I joke about it, but finding that world was a lifesaver for me as a kid. Literally did not have the happiest of childhoods, and being able to find a group of friends who not only read the same stuff and watched the same stuff, but felt as intensely about it as I did, was just really life-changing.
I respect that, absolutely.
And I grew up in Queens, where we had nobody like that. It was just me in a borough of 2 million people. It was just me. I was like, I tried to connect with kids, other kids on that basis, and what? What are you talking about, Mike? After a while, I just gave up. I said, all right.
Really? I'm sorry, man.
It's just me. It's just me.
I don't know, Jeff. Did you have? I'm going to be 59 in a couple months.
My dad turned me on to all this stuff. My dad turned me on all this stuff. So really
That's
weird
great.
Because my education into comics started with Doc Savage and Terry and the Pirates and all of the stuff from when he was a kid. Like by the time I caught up to what was happening sort of currently, I guess in the mid to late 70s for me, I had gone through it sort of a natural progression. So I started with the Shadow. I started with the Spirit, these guys. I was like, oh my God, and then they're still doing them and they're different in this way, and like I literally went through a pre-comics, then I went through a golden age, then I went through a silver age, and then I was, you know what I mean? Like, but all naturally. And sort of at every stage, there was someone around. Never generally a lot of people, but I was never like, I hear this weirdness in the fan community a lot, certainly not as much now, where they were like ridiculed or ostracized or treated poorly or whatever. I never got any of that. People either completely ignored it, which are like, I don't know what that is and I don't care, or what's that? It was never like, you geek, you weirdo. It was never.
I never got any of that you geek stuff either. But then again, I only hung around with geeks, so
that's true. That is true. Maybe it was my friendship.
I was thinking about this recently about there's talk high school reunions are coming up, and I graduated high school in 1973. And I have no desire to ever see just about any of those people ever again.
You're like my spirit animal.
Not that they ever did anything bad to me. They just meant nothing to me. I walked, I passed among them like a ghost, and nobody ever tried to say, hey, who are you? What's going on? So it's like, I'm out of here.
I went to a high school reunion a couple of weeks ago. It was actually for the class behind me, rather than because my class doesn't have reunions or proms or anything.
Well, that's what they tell you. Yes.
Yeah.
As far as you're concerned, they don't.
Right. I never heard about them. Anyway, I went and people, I go, hey, how you doing? And people go, I don't know you, dude. I don't know who you are. And then I go, okay, all right. and I'd show them my badge, and they'd go, "I still don't know who you are." You know, it was humbling to say the least.
It's a weird thing too. Like, I don't know. We're supposed to be talking about comics and superheroes.
No, this is all good. Keep going.
This weird notion that high school is the apex of your freaking life. Like, the further away you get from it, the smaller portion of your life it becomes. Like,
You know, the most important thing I could tell my son was that high school sucks. Don't let anybody pretend it doesn't. Just get through it.
I hear what you're saying. I always say there's like a local bar near where my high school was, and I always have glory days, Bruce Springsteen, in not a positive way, running through my head where I'm like, oh, here we fucking go again with this whole yearbook bullshit. So no, I hear you. That's fantastic. And I just had my 40th reunion, and I got friends. Don't get me wrong, and it was nice seeing people. But no, you're right. It's this much of your life. Yeah, I'm very, very small space between my fingers for the audio audience that might be hearing this. All right, back to phenomenons, and also because you did kind of unpack as you were talking about your early stories and stuff. Jeff, on your run on Green Lantern, I have to. Well, I'm curious because, and in fact, backstage we were even saying I was all prepared. A great, obviously, inspiration for the Green Lantern Corps came from Prose, came from the pulps. And it may not be a connection that a lot of fans are aware of, but Doc Smith and the Lensmen. And I love that. By the way, Warren Drummond watching us right now and saying,
Warren, what's up, baby? How you doing?
You know,
I know Warren. What's up, man?
No, Warren's a buddy. Absolutely.
I love Warren.
So,
Warren.
And he says his upperclassmen in high school were Dennis Cowan, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Mark Texeria. And his classmate Steve Carr directed Paul Blart Mall Cop. There you go.
Holy crap.
I went to school with Al Sharpton Jr.
Wow.
That's insane.
Did you? Really?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. That's cool. Had to be a hell of a parent-teacher night when that would happen. That's probably cool.
He used to preach on the the steps on the side of the building at lunchtime. Yeah.
Cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, I guess he comes by it honestly.
Jeff, but were the Lensmen in your mind as you were writing Green Lantern?
Well, the thing about the Green Lantern, Silver Age Green Lantern, and I got into some heat about it because prior to taking the job of writing Green Lantern, as a fan, I'm not a big Hal Jordan fan. I'm actually anti-Hal Jordan. I find him to be, like a great many of the Silver Age characters, sort of a cipher. Right? I call him Cardboard Hal, and basically everyone else in that mythology is more interesting to me than Hal Jordan. Because it's Twitter, someone compiled all of the tweets where I basically said that as if it was some sort of a rant. But the bottom line is the revamp from the original Alan Scott magic-based Green Lantern, where there's only one guy, and he got it from the train wreck, and the two people prior had horrible ends, but he was the one who was going to get power.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with it? That's a great sort of, it isn't even old school. That's a great origin story. That is a great origin story. So to shift it into Silver Age to you're part of this intergalactic core, right? That's also a great origin story, as long as we never see the damn core, right? Like, Green Lantern needs to be a unique superhero that can only do what Green Lantern can do.
That's the problem with a lot of that DC stuff. They had this incredible ability to de-uniquify their characters.
What are they thinking about, man?
You like Superman? Here's Supergirl, Superhero, Superdog. You like Green Lantern? Here's 3,600 more of them. You like The Flash? Here's a whole line of them.
That's
the opposite way. And it was even built into the concept, which was, don't get me started on the real physics. I know it's comic books, but there's a bunch of these sectors. Here's your sector. Okay. You don't need to see anybody else because they all have their sectors, and the universe is a very big place. So you get Hal Jordan, whether you like him or not, is our Green Lantern for this sector. And he has Earthbound adventures and he has Star Trek adventures, and he almost never sees another Green Lantern. Almost never. Right. And if he does, then it's an event. That worked. That model worked. And then since then, basically almost every writer who's come on, not all, but most, have been like, we need another human Green Lantern. We need another of this, like what Paul is saying. So I feel like Green Lantern can't work as a. There's this whole idea that they're space cops, but they can't be, because the Guardians of the Universe are nobody's elected officials. They're not who says that they have, they have the book of whatever that says they can do what they can do. I'm like, sure, I didn't elect you. But if you recast them or think of them instead as peacekeepers and rescuers, right? These incredibly powerful beings that show up and get you out of trouble. Galactus is about to eat your planet. Oh, who's that green guy who's fighting Galactus? Oh, I'm a Green Lantern. Don't worry, citizens. Like that. But if he's there to take you to Guardian jail, like that's not a good look. And ironically, the Lensman original idea, if you look at the Lensman, it's kind of fascistic, right? So you can see where, just a little, you can see where the drift would come from that original kernel and sort of loop back to the Lensman philosophy. So setting aside that I prefer John Stewart, whatever, my time on the book anyway was, let's pare all that down. Let's throw some actual sci-fi concepts in here. Let's Brian Michael Bendis had done this weird thing where he had Superman's kid sort of say, you guys are always fighting, all you interstellar people. Why don't you have the United Nations, you idiots? And they're like, hey, the Kryptonian kid's right. And they start the United Planets.
Yes.
There, right? So I was like, well, what's the political fallout from that? In real world terms, what would happen? You've had for billions of years, theoretically, the Guardians sort of running around acting like everybody's cops. And now you have an actual governmental civilization going on.
Right.
That doesn't match. Those two things can't coexist. So what are we going to do? And so that was coinciding with some of what we were talking about, the craziness that was going on backstage at I was just say at Warner's in general, not just in comic books, but just across the board. They were getting bought, they were getting sold, they were getting rebought and resold.
Yeah,
People were getting fired.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Paul. I suspect it isn't over yet either. Go on.
Oh no, right, exactly. It is nonsense, and it is chaotic nonsense. And God bless everybody who can surf that wave. Like, I say,
my analogy always is that moment in here we go again, another movie reference. Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, when they go to the cockpit and nobody's flying the plane, and I truly, no disrespect to Marie Jevons or and forgive me, I'm forgetting the executive's name who just stepped down, because again, not their fault. They're not. I mean, I'm saying more on the really upper corporate thing of, hey, we're independent. Well, now we're AT&T. Now we're the Discovery Channel.
I hear Mrs. Paul's Fish Sticks is going to acquire the company next.
Well, look, when Paul and Mike were in the box,
is going to become the #1 character. You watch.
When they were aggressively in the box, you're talking about an editor like Paul Evans. You're talking about an editor like Denny O'Neil. You're talking about Stan or Jim Shooter actually being the EIC. Like them or hate them, doesn't matter. They were actually in charge of something. They had to make these decisions to go left or right. Okay, we're going to do Secret Wars. Let's go crazy. Maybe it works. Crisis on Infinite Earths. People minimize Crisis. No one had ever done that before. There was no idea what would happen after we do this. Okay.
Well, what was supposed to happen was it never got mentioned again.
Wow.
Because they reset
the idea was
because you reset the deck. Right.
And it's a hard reset, and it never gets mentioned again.
Right.
And then Roy started filling in the pieces. Mm-hmm. And Dick kind of went, Roy, yeah. So the whole thing fell apart, and that is exactly what happened. Yeah.
But now those people are not in charge; they are at absolute best middle management, and so.
But there are also 3 generations. There are 3 generations removed from the creation of comic books.
That's correct.
We knew the creators of the comic books. I got into comics in 1975. Comics started in 1935. So they were 40 years old, which meant the people who created them were in their 50s and 60s and were still around.
Mm-hmm.
What they gave us, what they taught us, the kind of comics they did, died long ago. Those don't exist anymore. And the people who are doing it are now it's kind of like what happened to Superman. the only real Superman is the Superman written by Siegel and Schuster. Every Superman since has been layering interpretations on top of that. So,
That's true.
I remember John Byrne and I were once bitching about, look what they've done to our Superman, blah. As our Superman was just that, our Superman. It wasn't the real Superman, We never did the real Superman because we ain't Siegel and Schuster. But the whole industry has gone 3 generations past the creators, and as will happen, they've lost touch with the original intent and with what the way it was. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. It's just the way it is.
But even if you had a shooter right now, let's give the current EICs, both companies, absolute every benefit of the doubt. They can't move like that. They literally cannot make those.
Of course not. Listen,
right?
I literally remember a day when an editor could stick his head into the boss's office and go, "Hey, can we do? I want to do Hercules Unbound." Sure, go ahead. That was all it took.
Yeah. Remember what was that first issue special?
Yeah.
First issue special. There were so many weird ass concepts that came through that, and they don't even try something like that now because it's not already an IP, right? And I'm like, it's already a risk. You're already risking. There's no guarantee except maybe Batman. I don't know what that's about, but like Batman, apparently you can print gold. Apparently, Spider-Man, you can do whatever you want. You're going to make money, but everything else is a crapshoot. So if it's a crapshoot, shoot the damn crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's go, new shooter. Let's see what we get.
You ever work in a corporation?
Right. That's what it is. That's not how 100%. It works.
Yeah, man.
Right.
No, that's the issue. That is the problem. Definitely. Yeah. And that must be freeing then, obviously, to take it back to phenomenons and what you guys are truly doing. Yeah. There's no corporate master to tell you no. And so sky's the limit of how you want to take these characters. It's something I always appreciated, and I hope you guys take the comparison as a compliment. But George R. Martin's Wild Cards. Everyone loves Game of Thrones. Well, there you go, Jeff, me and you, man. Exactly. And I don't know if Paul and Mike were reading that stuff too. But man, that was such an eye opener, and it was so great. I still love it. I still check in to see what the new stories are because they keep churning out new heroes in that unit.
Well, let me talk to you. Let me, as the newbie, talk to you about Crazy 8 a bit, because there's another book called Thieves' World, which is cut from the same cloth as Wild Cards, and essentially you have what we would call an IP universe now, and you gifted writers, you come in and play in this universe, and you're going to own your own stories. You get to walk away with whatever you bring, except the larger universe, right? Yeah. But the problem became every individual writer, as you move forward in time, starts wanting more carve-outs for their own thing, and there's personality conflicts and all that crap. And with Crazy 8, at least certainly with the anthologies I've been in, which the Pangea anthology is at first loosely connected, and then increasingly connected, and now with Phenomenons, it's loosely connected, apparently, from an audience point of view, and then increasingly connected. But nobody's getting that sort of weird ego vibe, and nobody's getting sort of weird corporate exploitation hit. So it works, but you have to have the right people.
Right. Well, I think that's a good part of it. In our Kickstarter, in our Kickstarters, I often say, I'm sorry.
Currently running, by the way.
Currently running, which we should get to, but in our Kickstarters, one of the things I say is not only are these great writers, these are also great people, because as long as it's up to you to make the selection, why not? Why not pick great people as well? And I really believe that. It's so much fun as an editor to interact with all these minds and these hearts, and to try to pull it all together. I can't tell you it's easy, or not, and not ever frustrating, but it's a lot of fun. Writing is a solitary job. we've all been there. Like, I mean, I'm sure I've spent days and days in my office without talking to anybody, even an editor sometimes. But when you're doing this, you feel like you're part of a group, and in fact, you're talking to other people. You're bouncing off their ideas, and it's a different experience, and one that actually that I prefer at this point.
You're inclined to say yes to this environment, like you're not protective. I'm not worried that the other writers are going to fuck my characters over if they use them. It doesn't even cross my mind, right? There's no kill proviso because I know they're not going to kill my guy. Right.
Unless you let them.
Well, if they ask me, and also there's almost always, because it's superhero comics, there's almost always a back door, right? Like unless like they get chopped in the face with an axe or something,
I was dead, but I got better.
Yeah, exactly. You can get better from almost any injury in superhero comics.
Yeah, nobody's dead forever.
It's a convivial environment made by people who know what they're doing, understand the tropes. I think Mike's job is a little easier because I would say close to 100% of us have in some way been touched by comic books repeatedly over years and years and years. So there's a lot of sort of intrinsic understanding of how they work, even in prose form. So like when I say an AIM style or a Hydra style or a SHIELD style organization, but it's still ill-defined enough that Mike as editor can look at it and go, maybe I'll pick this up for something else. I'll make them an arm of this other endeavor, which doesn't hurt my story at all. And I don't care, because I never named them in the first place. I just said shadowy organization, So if he's got an organization that they can be an arm of, great. Doesn't hurt me. It only helps the project. So
one of the things that I thought would be an asset, and in fact has turned out to be an asset, is the interaction of our characters. I mean, Jeff has actually kind of been on deck circle, if you will, waiting to hit one out. But the rest of us have been, hitting singles and doubles and moving the runners, and interacting. That was one of the things that Stan Lee did very well, I thought. Daredevil would guest star in Spider-Man, and maybe just you'd see, the torch in the sky behind some character. Yep. Like, well, he's just there. Of course he's there because he's part of that world. Of course
he lives in New York. He was occasionally. Yeah.
No, I so hear you. That is great Silver Age kind of stuff. And I even remember Mike Gaydos doing that in the Alias book with Bendis, where just out of, they're having a cafe kind of conversation, and Thor just flies by. And it's like,
why wouldn't he? He lives there.
Right.
When I first got to New York, my dad is actually from Queens, Mike.
Okay.
And a big sort of return, meet the grandpa, all that stuff when you're about 7 or 8 years old. I showed up in New York, and let me tell you, I was heartbroken that there was no Baxter Building. Truly heartbroken. I expected to see that in the skyline. And I was like, well, you got it. There's the Daily Bugle. There's the Daily Bugle, right? No, Jeff, that's fictional. No, they show that they go to the Empire State Building. They talk to Stan and Jack. They go to the Marvel offices in the book. It's like, no. I was crushed. Inconsolable.
They couldn't put it in the comic if it wasn't true, right?
Right. It's all real, Dad.
I do love those Travel Channel documentary episodes where they go through New York, and it's like, okay, this is what the Baxter Building was, or rather the Avengers Mansion, things like that, and at least Jeff, there's the water towers on top of the building.
Sure.
Spider-Man is swinging by. So because I hear what you're saying, I don't disagree with you, but that's awesome.
Yeah, the first time I went to LA, I look up in the skyline, and it's like, there's the Daily Planet building. Because it's LA City Hall, but all my life it was the Daily Planet building.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brad wanted to know if he says he sees Professor Paracelsus in the new artwork for Wind and Fire, and he takes it Pereira's up and writing again.
I wish that were the case. It's going to be touch and go. You know, Peter's one of the founding members of Crazy Eight, and he's a good friend. And I want to leave that door open for him in case he can go through it. But I can't tell at this point if that's going to happen. Our first order of business, of course, is to fund the Kickstarter. You know, we're not quite a week in, and we're about 35% done, which is good. We're on track, but you know, we've got a long way to go, and we need all the support we can get. So, in the event that we,
do you have a URL I can post here?
I don't have one handy, but I could. Let's see.
Because I can write one up and put it on screen.
Yeah, if you Google Kickstarter phenomenons,
well,
it'll get you there.
Hold on, I'll just put it in the backstage chat.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
thanks,
good.
Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. So anyway, if we fund, then that's, you know, at that point I'll be reaching out to Peter and see to what extent he can contribute.
We're gonna fund. We're funding. We're definitely gonna fund.
Well, I hope so. You know, it's you know, I'm confident, but you know, with reservations, it's always a bit of a crapshoot, and we have a track record. You know, we funded the 3 Pangea books, and thank you, and opens in a new tab. Okay. We funded the Pangea books, and we funded the first 2 Phenomenons books, and hopefully we'll keep on funding. But we don't want to take it for granted. You know, it's a you know, we need the support, and it only happens you know, by the grace of our supporters.
I've put it in the chat as well for the YouTube audience.
Right. Yeah.
Have it in the description of the audio as well. But no, hey man, again, you guys know what you're doing, and you all come from a tradition of reading the previous great collections of superhero prose. Was it Bob or was it Martin Greenberg or Berger who did the the further adventures of Batman and Superman?
Yeah, there was Batman, there was Superman, Wonder Woman, and I think 3 Batman volumes.
Yes.
I had a story in the Catwoman volume.
Oh, that's awesome, Paul.
Yeah.
Oh man, Mike Resnick. He had a great story called Neutral Ground, and it was about a tailor that served not only Batman but all the villains.
Oh,
and because they all used him, hence the title, Neutral Ground.
I love that.
Nobody got to mess with anybody there, and it was great. It's just this schlubby tailor that's just like, all right, you know, Riddler wants 25 more question marks on his uniform. All right, whatever. You know, or he's going through with Bruce Wayne. He's like, I've kind of I've reinforced your gauntlets when you're climbing on the bat rope, and might I suggest a silk rope rather than the cord they use, because that's why they wear out. And Bruce is like, all right, okay, you know.
Paul, you had a story in an anthology, a superhero anthology of you know, brand new characters cut from whole cloth.
That's right.
Do you remember? You remember the name of that?
It was the anthology was Superheroes. It was John Varley and Risha Mainhart edited it, and I had a story in there about a superhero who shows up out of nowhere, rescues this PR guy who, out of gratitude, turns him into an icon, and of course a valuable IP.
You're not helping. You're not helping me.
But anyway, I remember that. I remember that was a great story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Is that the same volume that Denny was in, Denny O'Neil?
Yes.
And a bicycle, something bicycle. Yeah,
right.
Something about a bicycle in the park.
Right. It was a superhero who rides a bicycle to the scene of the crime.
Yeah.
No, those are fun, man. No, and again, you know, I remember those. I remember the Marvel paperbacks that came out.
The Marvel paperbacks, speaking of short stories, one of the best superhero short stories was in the Marvel collection, Marvel Superheroes. There were 3 or 4 stories in there. There was an X-Men, and this or that, and Marty Pasco wrote a Daredevil story under the alias Christopher or Kyle Christopher, and it was great. It was one of the best superhero short stories I've ever read. He was the first person who, he's working in prose, so he could describe the way Matt Murdock could see.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really beautifully done. Marty, as I hope we all know, Marty was a very talented writer, and he really nailed it.
Mike, had you ever?
I did not know about the alias, though. I did not know about that.
Oh, there are things about Marty and aliases.
Exactly. Had you ever? I know he was busy with animation too, but Mike, did you ever consider, and Paul, you guys being Crazy Eight guys? I was thinking you guys kind of as the, founders or whatever, or part of the initial idea. Forgive me, Jeff, if you were also part of the original.
I'm a new.
That's what I figured. New. Okay, all good. But did you ever consider
Marty? I actually tried to get Marty to write prose for me when I was editing in DC's licensed publishing department. I would, if I had things coming along, I would call him up and go, Marty, write this. He goes, no, I don't want to do that. Why do you think it's like, because you really do it well.
You're good at it. Come do it.
Come do it. He wouldn't do it. I did get Christopher Priest to start writing prose.
Mm-hmm. A great Green Lantern story. Yeah, absolutely, man.
And he has cursed me ever since. Because it made him want to stop writing comic books.
Will Murray was a really good, I think, prose superhero writer as well.
Yeah.
I think, God, I know he did a great Nick Fury novel from the 80s that I really appreciated and stuff.
I would do that in a heartbeat. I don't think they're making very many of them now.
Well, actually they are, Jeff. Not a ton, but Stuart Moore, I know, is writing prose novels for Marvel. I was at, when it comes to Chicago, I go to the American Library Association shows, which are more trade shows. They're open to the public, but they really are more for booksellers and librarians and the like. And no, honestly, both DC and Marvel have quietly had novels of their main characters just continue to chug along. Some are novelizations of comic book story arcs, like Greg Pak did his own adaptation of World War Hulk. But like I said, no, Stuart does stuff. A lot of times too, they're novelizations of games, current games.
So a lot of young adult stuff and a lot of young readers.
I'm going to reach out to my editor at DC about that. Because
anybody at DC probably has nothing to do with any of that.
That's probably true.
You might be right.
They no longer have a licensed publishing department. Believe me.
Wow.
I thought you were going to stop at nothing to do.
They break my heart. It breaks my heart for them.
It does, right? Right.
I hope eventually stuff will settle down and things will be.
I don't think things ever go back.
I hear you on that, Paul. Absolutely, yes.
There's going to be some version of a new normal. I just hope it's one where the people can live and not be underpaid and overworked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, forget that.
Jeff, I know.
Really, Jeff.
I still believe in heroes. God damn it.
Yeah, but don't believe in corporate publishing, man.
That's true.
Well, and Jeff as a TV writer as well. Now that we're talking this week where it sounds like the actors finally have a tentative deal. I think we'll find out more as the week progresses. But the writers, thank God, also have kind of settled things. How do you, are you happy? Are you? And
we got I would say 96% of what we went in to get. There's people have been bringing this up a lot because the sort of AI is the conversation du jour, but there was a lot of meat and potatoes, bread and butter writer stuff going on as well. Not the least of which is people finally started doing the math on how little they were being paid versus the way they were paid, let's say in the year 2000, and that they were actually making more back then per whatever, like per unit, for lack of a better word. And that had been a steady decline, and it looked like it was becoming more and becoming intentional. And I can rant about this politically for a long time, but the bottom line of it is there are a group of people who don't make anything but have lots of money and they buy up stuff. And then when they come in, they think they're making improvements and streamlining things to serve a bottom line, which is a quarterly return for investors. for their shareholders.
Yep.
Okay. Which means smaller writers' rooms, which means shorter TV seasons, which also means, from the point of view of every fan who's mad about this, too much Star Trek, too much Star Wars, too much Marvel movie stuff, too much Marvel TV. They think I'll flood the market with all of this stuff. What we were talking about with 9,000 Supermans, right? Like, they flood the market, and if they love this every year, they'll love it every day. But it's the opposite. The opposite effect is what happens.
Well, that's what happened when big media acquires comic book companies.
Yes.
The comic book companies become
exactly
the
what
media companies. And so, you know, it's always been the comic book business, but now it's show business. And if you thought the comic book business was bad,
it's brutal. And it's because the dollar scale is much greater and people are more vicious about it. But end of the day, what we finally made the point of, and I think the actors actually had a stronger hand, which is why their strike was shorter. They had us to stand on, and they're the face people. Literally just had this conversation with somebody. If I'm running a show and you, John, are my lead actor, in the first year, if you start acting like a jerk, I can fire you and replace you with somebody else. In the middle year, in the second year, we'll be fighting. Like it's an you don't know what the outcome will be in that battle. But in year 3, if it makes it to year 3, even if I created the show, if you and I are having beef, the studio's going to kick me out and say, thanks for the show.
Yep.
Because you're who the public knows.
Yep.
Right? They don't know me. So the same thing with the actors. So
listen, in comics, I was lifted off of, you know, things I created or things I'd been working on just on editorial whim.
Yeah.
You know, just new guy comes in and goes, I want to work with my pal, and takes me off of my book and gives it to his pal.
Yeah, what do you know about Checkmate?
This was Arian.
I know. What do you know? But by the way, I love Checkmate.
Or is that Arian?
Arian.
Yeah.
And Aragon. I love both of those, and I have them in my closet right now.
Well, well, they're out of the closet.
No, stop.
They're good.
I have 30,000 comic books, and a lot of them are yours. Let's just put it like that.
Well, thank you.
But yeah, so what they were doing was ultimately gutting the movie and TV industry. And that it was an easy point to make once you started to explain, this is great for your shareholders next month, but you're not going to generate that A-list writer with this paradigm. Within 10 years, all of us are going to die out. And you won't have anyone to replace us with. If you care about that, if you care about sustaining your business, you might not want to kill us with this AI nonsense. Right?
I'm so with
That's
you.
even more. Right. But it's even more of a problem for the actors with this whole body scanning thing and, you know, digitizing stuff. And I think people finally are sort of generally in the public tech savvy enough, not truly, but enough to make the proper arguments, where I think I call them the bad guys. I think the bad guys thought everybody was still dumb, and we're just not. So
I hear what he's saying. Yeah. Hopefully he'll unfreeze in a minute. He's in the Phantom Zone right now, unfortunately. Good question.
Big media heard what he said, and now they've
let's all freeze like Police Squad. All right. Anyway, James Bunt, interesting question, and I know you guys all can come from a frame of knowledge to hit this, because I can appreciate what James thinks is going to happen. He says, "I'm counting the days till Superman goes into the public domain. Once that happens, do you guys feel that DC will still be valuable to whoever buys their overlords?"
People don't understand that there's a difference between copyright and trademark, and they will retain the trademark on Superman, and that is the valuable asset.
Agreed, but also much like what Dynamite does now, certain Edgar Rice Burroughs books have fallen in the public domain. Right. Dynamite can publish a Lord of the Jungle book with a character named Tarzan in it. They can't do a Tarzan book trademark, whatever, because the Burroughs estate still owns it. Right. And then what you're describing, Paul, is like that with Superman.
Exactly that.
I suppose a Last Son of Krypton or some variation.
Well, for instance, as I recall, at the end of all the legal stuff with the Siegel estate, that DC retains the ownership, but there are certain aspects of Superman that stay with the Siegels. So anything that was done in Superman up to a certain point in time belongs to Siegel and Schuster. So when they change origins, when they change costumes, that's the reason why. To get new, to get new versions that are recopyrightable because they're new.
Restart the clock, basically.
Yeah.
It was my understanding that maybe the things that are in Action 1, so even Schuster's original design of Superman is very different than the blue and red Union suit that we're all used to, that we've been used to since the 40s. So
I mean, it's not a different. It's the same situation with Mickey Mouse,
right?
Mickey is already PD, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's Steamboat Willie, but isn't it interesting?
Steamboat Willie.
And Jeff, I don't know if you've noticed it as a TV guy, but now when they show the Walt Disney trademark, instead, and depending on the project, it isn't that shot of the Magic Castle and the logo. Now it's Steamboat Willie whistling.
Yeah, how shocking! How shocking is that?
Exactly, and they can kind of co-opt that into their trademark.
Well,
like,
it's
sorry,
also,
now it's
it's even more insidious than that, my good friend. It's not original Steamboat Willie. It's not
insane. I had no idea. That's amazing.
No, it's a new design. It's slightly off that model
because it's new and copyrightable.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. So, because you're not going to save yourself with the original Steamboat Willie, that's a done deal.
Oh, right? Walt, you insidious bastard!
Right.
Well, I know.
He's a monster. People don't even know. Oh my God.
And what they did to poor Pluto.
Oh,
I do know Liefeld is drawing it because he's been very public about it. His own public domain Action 1 Superman and stuff, and it's like, hey man, the minute it's public domain, I'm dropping the comic, and it's like, good for you, man. That's cool. I mean, no one's gonna get rich off it, but it's an interesting opportunity.
Didn't Dynamite or somebody do Project Superpowers, and that was just all original? They were already public domain. Most characters,
they were the Nader Fiction House 40s,
right? So it was like
Black Terror. Love Black Terror. Love, great costume. Oh no, somebody, my buddy Larry Young is like, who gives a shit about these public domain heroes? I'm like, hey man, a lot of those original Golden Age heroes had great designs. Airboy has a great design.
Airboy, Phantom Lady, the original Daredevil has a cool costume.
Yes, Lev Gleason, sure.
Like Freak the Phantom. I mean, pardon me, the Shadows costume.
Oh yeah,
the big red scarf and the giant freaking fedora and everything's shadowy. Like Batman bit his whole act. Like,
well, I remember in the 70s, I loved when they had the Shadow license, and there were those couple stories that the Shadow was kind of a mentor to Batman and stuff. Those were great. And also we were lucky, Jeff, growing up when we did it. I mean, these guys were about to be pros or whatever at that point, but those 100-page super spectaculars would also reprint Golden Age stuff, Silver Age stuff, and modern stuff. Right. And so they were comics to us. We didn't care, whatever.
Listen, dude, like it's weird working with people whose work I bought because I just liked it, which is a lot of my life in all aspects of my life. But yeah, the reason all this stuff exists right now, the big fervor right now, like these guys are idiots at Warner's. There should be a Checkmate show. There should just be a Checkmate show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, even looking at it objectively, there should be a goddamn Checkmate show.
And the reason is you can have, if you have your super movie going on, then that character can make a cameo that season.
Sure.
But without it, Checkmate's remit is James Bond plus superpowers. Please let me make your show. I will be printing money for you over and over again. Right? It's just dumb not to do it. Yeah. But all comes from an era where now they're kind of regurgitating and sort of let's repackage, let's remix. And I'm like, but those guys weren't remixing nothing. They were just making stuff.
On the upside, James Gunn is a Checkmate fan.
There you go.
James. Never say never.
Call me. James, I'm free. I'm available.
Oh man. All right, Geoffrey, are you set? And forgive me for getting in your business, but like, are you with a show now that the strike is over?
I am indeed with a show, which you will be very happy to see when it comes out, and which I am not allowed to tell you what it is.
Totally, I respect that. That's great.
But
I've been
your
looking
audience
forward
in
to that
particular.
Captain Kangaroo reboot for years.
No, I'm glad to hear that. That's excellent. And truly, man, come back and let's do
Anytime you want.
Okay, good. I really, I
Anytime
want to talk about the
Anytime you want.
everything.
But this is. I mean, let's loop back. The phenomenons thing is growing up with comics the way we all did. All right, each one of us has grown up with comics in just slightly different eras.
Yeah.
But almost nobody gets to be on the ground floor of a new universe, right? And we all know what we're looking at. We all know, but like this is a riff. So if you know about, in my case, if you know about the Challengers or you know the Fantastic Four, you might see certain currents that are going on that are not obvious to a person who doesn't. But a person who doesn't need all that backstory. You don't need any of that. It's just you're just stepping into this universe and have a ball. Right? Lipstick Punisher, man. Come on. That's crazy. Let's go. But that will never show up in Marvel or DC. Never.
Right.
No chance.
Well, again,
Right.
Also the first 2 volumes available on Amazon, everybody, of Phenomenons. There's volume 1 and volume 2, a little more blurry. Forgive me, everybody. But we're here about the Kickstarter campaign for volume 3, which still has a couple weeks to go. And as Mike said, they're about 35% there. They could use your support. And again, I'll throw up for the video audience the Kickstarter URL. It is in the chat, everybody, at YouTube. So hopefully, but Kickstarter projects Kickstarter.com, Phenomenons, The Wind and Fire. So that's
And I'll build on what Jeff was saying. Not only is this a superhero universe that you can get in on the ground floor of. I mean, the barrier to entry is the first 2 volumes. That's nothing, right? Yeah. And you're having a great time while you're piercing that barrier to get to volume 3. It's a great read in both cases.
Plus, if you back the Kickstarter at certain levels, you can actually be in.
Exactly.
Yes. You can be in this universe.
Exactly.
You could be Tuckerized and be written into stories, as Brad Jurin rightly knows. He's been written into the Torque line, so he's
Yep. His dad is an ongoing character in the Torque saga as it were. There are guys who are now part of this. In fact, if we go back to the cover for volume 3,
1 sec,
right? 3 of the 6 characters are actually backers.
Wow!
And this is they haven't seen this yet, but this is a little bonus for them. They've all been supporters of the project from the get-go, and they've Brad, his dad is into stories, and and they've been in interior art. So it's not just a matter of being written into the story. You can actually have your face on that character, as some of these guys do. So it's a superhero universe you can get in on from the get-go and be part of it, as Paul points out.
Come and play. It's supposed to be fun. All this stuff supposed to be fun.
That's awesome. James, final question, and I'll throw it to all of us. Any strong feelings about the James Bond reality show 007 Road to a Million? I'm aware of it. I've seen a little bit of it. I'm just not a reality TV guy. Yeah,
and I'm too busy with the Golden Bachelor. I just
You can ask my wife. I have no relationship to reality. So
No.
Yeah, same.
I understand.
I don't have any strong feelings.
Beyond Phenomenon Volume 3. Brett says Hildy's going to write a story with my mom in the new one, funding permitted. Oh, that's great. Yep. That's great to hear, Brad. Very cool. See, so there you go. Brad's a good active Kickstarter contributor, making that stuff happen, and that's wonderful. All right, Beyond Phenomenons Volume 3. Paul, I know you're in the midst of your autobiography.
A memoir. Yeah, actually, I'm working on 2 books simultaneously because I am an idiot. But one is sort of. Yeah. Well, who's arguing? One is my comic book memoir, my life in comics, and the other one is my next book of interviews, which
Nice.
I'm hard at work at. I have 2 more interviews to conduct and put together. But yeah, so I'm working on those 2 projects, and I'll be announcing times for my own Kickstarters coming up sooner or later.
Plus the library of books, things like JSA Ragnarok and Same Old Story. Same Old Story,
yeah.
right? Your 50s behind
Yes,
the
Same Old Story. That's a murder mystery novel set in the comic book industry in the early 1950s. All the books that I have done so far and will do in the future will be available on paulkupperberg.net. So
Nice.
Excellent. Mike, I know you've got your Aztec Detective series.
Yeah. My 21st Century Aztec Empire Noir Murder Mystery series.
I am so
Welcome to Crazy Eight.
Genre.
Welcome to Crazy Eight, you bastards. Welcome.
That genre is so overdone.
I know. Not another one.
Yeah. Don't play
again.
But anyway, so there's that, and then in about a week, we'll be releasing my latest short story collection, which is called Thelos and Other Stories. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, including, I would say, the craziest story I've ever written. And I can't tell you about it. You got to read it, but it's called Trash Talker.
Nice.
Outstanding. Brad says, I'd love to do a Leo Pertsky novella. All right, then.
I would love to do more with Leo Persky, who is the star of my collection of short stories and a novella called The Devil and Leo Persky, also available at paulkupperberg.net. And if somebody would go there and buy one, that would be like the 3rd copy anybody's bought. So right now, not a lot of Leo in my future, unfortunately.
Fair enough. All right. Guys, truly great conversation. I love the tangents. I'm sorry that Jeff froze a couple times, but I'm really glad that he was able to pop back.
I blame myself.
Nah, shit happens. Good Lord, who cares? It's all right. So, and truly, no, you're all due to come back for solo conversations. I'm glad that we really, Jeff. I'll be honest. I'm like, oh, I don't know Jeff, and I don't want to.
Anytime you want
minimize
to, any subject, anytime you want to. And
cool.
When this thing drops, you'll definitely want to talk to me.
All right, man.
It's not my thing, but when it happens, you're going to want to talk to people involved with it.
All right. So, well, I've got your email, so I'll be able to. Believe me, I'll throw up the bat signal, and we'll set something up. Okay. Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Hey, later tonight, I double booked. David Pepos is coming on, and for people curious about the new Punisher, which dropped this week, Frank Castle officially retired from the Marvel Universe. But interesting that Marvel is still willing to do a new Punisher. What are the rules?
It's the blonde guy, right? The new blonde, good looking.
I haven't seen enough images of him to distinguish his hair color, but I'm certainly curious, and I do think David's been a great Marvel writer. I love his creator-owned stuff as well, and has explored characters like his own Spencer and Locke character that was kind of a Calvin and Hobbes, but a very disturbed adult Calvin that you could say maybe would have a similar psychosis as a Frank Castle, or again, this new character too is coming with baggage. So a lot to talk about with David about that.
I'd like to see Calvin and Hobbes as an assassination. Calvin is an assassin, and Hobbes is his. But then,
Paul, I think you need to read the Spencer and Locke books. There are 2 or 3 volumes, and they're cops, but they are extreme cops, and yeah, there's definitely a personality issue that's kind of him.
Hobbes is not real. Hobbes is just in his head.
Oh man,
I thought it was Calvin that wasn't real.
Now that's awesome. That would be awesome.
Somebody contact Bill Watterson. I think we have a new
Dreams of a Rag Tiger.
Could be. Yeah. Funny. What if they're all like in Hobbes's mind rather than Calvin's mind? Interesting.
I mean, you
Jeff
just created a new thing.
All right, everybody.
Special thanks of the novel I'm about to write. Thank you very much for that.
All right, to be continued with these gentlemen and more. But if you want to come back tonight at, I got to do the math, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Central, 7 Pacific, my conversation with David Pepos tonight. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you, guys. Stay healthy.